Welcome to Fireside Giants. My name is Alex with my co-host here, Anthony Rivardo. Another day, another Giants practice with the New England Patriots as we head toward the final preseason game on Sunday. And we have a lot of work to do, a lot of work for these Giants players, especially those roster bubble guys that could be looking at either being cut, practice squad options, or making this roster. We want to talk about today's practice, a little Adoree Jackson update with his injury, and really just get some good info out there for you guys, because I know today a lot went down. It was really, really hot up in Foxborough. Some players leaving with cramps and whatnot, but no significant injuries. We walked away clean today. I know Rodarius Williams walked off with a little bit of a limp. I know some players kind of just were off here and there just to get some hydration, maybe get an IV bag. I know Jabril Peppers is known for getting cramps and needing an IV bag during games too. So a couple guys here and there, but nothing crazy. Anthony, before we dive into the good stuff, how you doing today, my friend?
I'm doing good. Another active day for the New York Giants. They even made a trade today. So they really had a busy day over in Foxborough, not over in New Jersey. Joint practices with the Patriots. Those have been really interesting to watch. I've been excited by, kind of the Mac Jones versus the Giants defense battle. Some days Mac Jones has actually seemed to have gotten the better of the Giants defense, but today it seems like the Giants defense really bounced back and had that kind of elite performance that we were waiting for them to have. Plus, there's plenty of other players who have stood out. Yes, there are some injury concerns, but thankfully so far looks like nothing too major. And that's really exciting because we know that other teams around the league have lost players already for the season. You think over, in the other locker room, the New York Jets lost Carl Lawson for the season. So far, the Giants, yes, we've had some injury scares, but so far we've come away pretty clean, nothing major. And I think that's something to be excited about. But of course, just to get excited in general, final preseason game on Sunday. I can't wait for that. Can't wait to see Mac Jones versus this Giants defense. Let's see how many players are starting on the Giants defense. Of course, I'm excited to see Daniel Jones get some preseason action. Just an exciting time right now for the NFL season, and especially for the New York Giants, with a lot of excitement going behind them into this regular season.
Yes, sir. With Adoree Jackson and that injury, I do want to start off talking about that a little bit. The chronology of how that went down is actually mind blowing. If you recall, the second it happened, he was carted off the field. Right, that's the first thing that happened. Adoree Jackson being carted off the field. Immediately after that, we hear significant swelling. Could he be out for a prolonged period of time? People are already getting a little crazy. Who's our cornerback depth? All that stuff. Of course, that's a natural reaction, because when Adoree Jackson, who has been injured in the past for significant portions of seasons, you have to start thinking, who do we have? Like, we just traded Isaac Yiadom. We just got Josh Jackson, who really hasn't done anything. We have Julian Love. We have Rodarius Williams, a couple of guys who could step in if need be. But luckily, the chronology follows that Adoree Jackson wasn't even ruled out for practice today. He was actually working with trainers. It was a grade 1 low ankle sprain. So significant swelling. I don't really believe that anymore, because a low ankle sprain would not present that much swelling. I think for the most part, he's probably fine. He's probably walking, maybe a little bit sore. But I think they're probably just icing it, keeping him good, and making sure that whatever swelling is there goes down naturally and he can take good care of that ankle. But again, he's eyeing that week 1 return. So we escaped by the skin of our teeth, my friends, dodged another bullet. Shane Lemieux, another guy who was left back actually in New York, because according to Joe Judge, they have better equipment there to suit his rehabilitation. A couple of players working their way back, but still eyeing week 1 returns. Adoree Jackson, that's a big one, Anthony. Did that scare you for a minute? Because I know for me, 3 years, $39 million, I was really nervous for a second, especially with those early reports coming out. But now I'm really happy to hear that he's going to be 100% healthy for the most part going into week 1.
Yeah, of course I was scared. I mean, anytime you hear about a player getting carted off, you're terrified, right? You think, oh no, this could be season ending. At the very least, this is like a 4 to 6 week injury, could miss half of the year. We're screwed. But no, we're not. Thankfully, this was just a precaution. Probably had a lot to do with the heat. Maybe he rolled his ankle, didn't want to put weight on it. Plus, it was 93 degrees outside, so he didn't feel like getting up off the floor, because at that point, you're just so exhausted. All you want to do is lay down. So maybe that's why they carted him off. I would actually assume that the heat had a lot to do with that. And of course, like the reports are saying, he's eyeing that week 1 return. It sounds like they're pretty confident he'll be back for week 1. That is a full 2-week period that he gets to really recover, because you got all of this week, all of the next week, since there's that bye week between the final preseason game and the regular season. So Adoree has a lot of time here to rehabilitate, to get ready for the regular season. So I do think he will be just fine. I'm not sure if he'll be playing at 100% in week 1, but it sounds like they're pretty confident he'll be able to suit up at the very least. And if he's able able to suit up. We know what kind of talent he is. He's better than any backup, even if he isn't at 100%, I would assume. So I'm definitely excited by this news, actually. Like, I was really scared by it yesterday. Today, I'm feeling a little more excited, a lot more hopeful, just considering the fact that this could have been so much worse than it is, right? Anytime you see a player go out on the cart, you're just scared that it's going to be a season ender. But thankfully, that wasn't the case. This seems like it's not even going to take him out of the regular season at all for even a game. So that's really exciting. They said eyes on week 1, so I'm assuming no practices left for Adoree Jackson until the regular season. And I think that, once again, Giants fans, we got away with a really scary break, but we got a good break on it, just like the Shane Lemieux thing and even the Kenny Galladay thing. That's 3 times it seems like the Giants had the worst case scenario avoided. So my question is, do you think that's due to great conditioning from Joe Judge? Or do you think that we're just getting really lucky and we have to hope that our luck doesn't run out one day?
Oh, for sure, luck. And I would even toss in Kyle Rudolph. I wasn't expecting him to be ready just yet, and here he is. He's ready to go. So most part, we were really escaping without major injuries. Knock on wood, of course. Don't want to jinx us, but we did have a couple of injuries in the last preseason game, including Quincy Wilson. He had an ankle issue, and I know Montre Hardage also had an issue. So they're both done for the season with the Giants at the very least. But I'm pretty excited to see that, we are probably going to have the majority of our starting players, our free agent signings available for week 1. Anthony, that's really exciting for me because I know, like you said, there was a couple injuries there that really scared us in the beginning, but I'm pretty confident we're doing well. And now we can kind of look forward to how this practice really went. And yesterday's narrative that Mac Jones went 30 for 35 or 35 for 40 and absolutely destroyed the Giants, it was true because Logan Ryan went as far as to say today that he looked really bad yesterday. He was like, yesterday was one of the worst days I've had in a long time. And Blake Martinez said the same thing. So he was like, as leaders, do we just sit there, hang our head, not show that this team, our teammates, that we can bounce back in a big way? Today they came back. Logan Ryan had an interception off Mac Jones. They looked really, really good. And Mac Jones finished, let's see, he finished 9 of 20, so less than 50% of his completions. And I'll tell you what, that says a lot better than yesterday's performance. I think it was just more or less heat related. Maybe the Giants just had an off day. Obviously, you can't really have off days in real games, but I think the Giants will be way more prepared for that. I'm not looking too much into it. Daniel Jones, however, finished 23 for 29. Much better. But again, I'm not really looking at stats during practice as like a gauge of how good a player is. But Daniel Jones did look a lot better. He had one awesome throw to Dante Pettis on a go route on the boundary. I think they put Pettis down on like the 1 yard line, and then they had a nice little play action roll out to Elijah Penny, who seems to be able to do it all. Elijah Penny's like this guy who's seemingly a receiver now and a fullback and a running back. Like, he can do all these different things. He's definitely going to make this roster. And for the most part, he's a pretty valuable player. But the Giants and Daniel Jones, I thought, a lot better to see. I know he had an interception yesterday. He had some ups and downs today in the first portion of practice. The offensive line was getting absolutely destroyed, Anthony. Before we talk about the offensive line and how those guys performed, what are you thinking about Daniel Jones' performance today? That taking that step forward, having a nice couple of passes, especially Dante Pettis, has been really standing out. And our guy David Sills also coming down with a sick touchdown grab. So Dante Pettis gunning for that last spot on the roster at the wide receiver position. But David Sills said, "Not so fast, my friend. I'm gonna match you." So, what are you thinking about these guys?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just excited by this competition that we have at the back of the roster at the wide receiver spot. Will the Giants carry 7 wide receivers? That's like a big question mark going into this, final wave of the preseason cuts. I'm really curious to see how many wide receivers the Giants choose to keep on the final roster. I do think they are going to hold 7 this year. I know it's kind of a bold prediction. A lot of people don't think that's a possibility because, it's 7 receivers. That's kind of an excess amount. But you think about Kenny Galladay's been dealing with an injury. Sterling Shepard's dealt with injuries in the past. Slayton's dealt with injuries in the past. Kadarius Toney's dealing with an injury. And then, the guys after them, why not hold 2 extras, right? Like, why not have that 7th receiver spot? I think that they should, and I think that a couple guys are really deserving of that final spot, but I don't know who's going to make it. Of course, I'm still rooting for David Sills. I'm part of David Sills' gang. I really love that guy. I think that he's been playing really well, and I think that he's been working super hard at that final roster spot, so hopefully that he will be able to make the final roster, but guys like Dante Pettis are really pushing for a spot. CJ Board has also had some nice plays in practice, and he's contributing on special teams, so that competition is really just something that I'm gravitating towards because I love watching wide receivers play generally. That's my favorite position. But of course, I'm also just really curious to see what the Giants are going to do because I think they're at a little bit of a crossroads here with the depth at wide receiver. How many receivers do they want to carry? How many receivers do they think are worthy of being carried? And then who gets cut and where does that player go once he is cut? Because these are all talented players. They're going to wind up somewhere, in my opinion. So, yeah, that's what I'm really focusing in on for the final 2 weeks here before the regular season. Let's see how this battle goes at wide receiver. But then flipping over to Daniel Jones, yes, I'm definitely encouraged to see him do better in practice, but also just keep in mind, same thing with Mac Jones. Anytime a quarterback has a really good day in practice and then a really bad day, it's just practice, right? Like we all got to keep that in mind. This is just practice. So sometimes they're just playing a completely different style of offense than they're used to because they're practicing some new plays, they're practicing a new scheme, practicing a new tempo or a new protection, maybe new protection calls. Maybe that's why the offensive line was struggling. That's the whole point. We want them to struggle in practice so that they don't struggle in the games. Like that's literally the purpose of practice. Get all of your hiccups out now so that when you play the game, you're good to go and you don't have all of these mistakes. So yeah, when I hear that he's playing really well, maybe they're giving a glimpse of the regular season playbook, right? So he's got that down and he's playing well. Maybe he's just having a good day. Maybe he's just having an off day. Maybe he's practicing a new portion of the playbook he's not comfortable with yet. Just got to keep all of that in mind, especially when you're talking about a guy like Mac Jones as well for the Patriots, a rookie who hasn't played a down of NFL football. He's really just learning all these different base concepts, all these more complex concepts as they keep going. And then, of course, learning how to go up against a good defense like the New York Giants. And this is really valuable learning experience for him. So, yeah, just generally speaking, I don't put too much stock into quarterback play at practice because I just know that they're trying all these different things out within the offense and practicing every nuanced piece of it. So it's kind of hard to evaluate their performances. But of course, I am encouraged by the fact that he did bounce back today after a seemingly shaky day yesterday. And he did make a couple nice highlight reel throws that I saw on Twitter and I was pretty excited by.
And that's really all you can ask for is just positive growth and momentum. I know Matt Pert was a guy that really got hit a couple times today with some sacks. I know, Anthony, that's your guy. But I will say this. You do have a point. Of course, they could be running specific plays that do put more pressure on specific players. More or less, maybe a Patriots player just had a freaking awesome day and they just balled out. It happens. So I'm not overly crazy about Matt Pert getting beat a couple times today. I know he's just kind of ramping up and getting into things. I think this weekend with this preseason game, he'll get some live action. We'll get a better idea of where he is currently. But at the same time, I'm not going to sit here and act like Nate Solder shouldn't be in the mix as that potential starter at right tackle, right? I'm not in the boat of just giving away starting positions anymore. I know, Anthony, you want Matt Pert to be that starter, but again, the past couple of years, and I do too, by the way, I want Matt Pert to win that starting job more than anything because having good, adequate rookie tackles is amazing for a team's salary cap. It allows you to really spend in other spots, and it gives you a lot of flexibility when it comes to spending in free agency in the future. So having those rookie tackles there is a tremendous benefit. But I will say, I'm also not in the boat of giving away starting positions anymore like we did last year at wide receiver and, other positions, even cornerback. We're just giving starting jobs to Corey Ballantyne, who was cut after 2 weeks, giving starting jobs to Ryan Lewis, giving starting jobs to Austin Mack. Giving starting jobs to CJ Board. I'm tired of that. I'm tired of just giving things away. I want guys to have to earn it. I want there to be freaking competition now and not just handing things out like it's a freaking McDonald's chicken McNugget promo giveaway. I'm more on the boat of having these guys actually earn it. And that's why I want Nate Solder to be in the mix there. And apparently he's having a good training camp. So I'm not going to sit here and act like Matt Pert's the end-all, be-all at right tackle. If Nate Solder looks good, allow him to compete, allow him to perform. And if he looks better than him, he should be starting. Because at the end of the day, it's not about Matt Pert. It's about Daniel Jones, right? If this offense is going to be successful next season, their offensive linemen have to be able to win their 1v1 matchups. That will be the end-all, be-all of this offense. Because if they don't win those 1v1 matchups and Daniel Jones is on his back and the football's 10 yards behind him and they're running it back for a touchdown, we're going to be sitting here once again saying, thank God we have that second Bears first round pick because we're going to need to draft another quarterback right now to reset our rookie window. That's the downside. That's the bad part of what this team could end up looking like. Of course, we don't go there. We want to stay on the positive side. I think Nate Solder and Matt Pert are going to work it out. I think they're going to be fine at right tackle. But again, those 1v1 matchups, on the offensive line are essential. We have the weaponry, we have the wide receivers, we have the running backs to really keep teams on their toes. Play more cover two, play more cover three. We're going to be okay because you're going to be keeping all those guys away from Daniel Jones. Extra blitzers, you can't do it. Otherwise, you have Saquon coming out on angle routes, on Texas routes. You have Kadarius Toney coming out of the slot. You have Sterling Shepard coming out of the slot. Kenny Golladay, throw it up 50-50. He's catching it most of the time. You know what I mean? We have the weapons now. You cannot play man coverage across the board all the time. You cannot play cover one against us. You have to have guys in the secondary at all times, and it's going to help the offensive line. We are going to see that. Keep in mind, the Giants don't even have Kadarius Toney. They don't even have a real Saquon Barkley. He just got on the field today for the first time, and we don't have Kenny Golladay on the field either. So how on earth will opposing defenses actually be able to compete with us? Or really even, we're not going to see the true reality of this offense until we see all of them on the field at the same time.
Yeah, and I will say, of course, I'm in the same boat as you. I don't want starting positions handed out. I want Matt Peart to earn this job. It seems like he's shaky right now. It seems like maybe even Nate Solder might be playing a little bit better, but I do want to see some live game action. I want to see him play in this preseason game and see how he does before, we jump to any conclusions about whether or not Matt Peart should or should not be starting. But of course, just generally speaking, the Giants, the offensive line has been a problem for years. This is something that they need to sort out. I'm hoping that Matt Peart is the answer and that he can pan out there. I'm still really positive and really high on him. I do believe that he will be that starter. But, I got to see it. I can't just give him the job. I can't just say, it's Matt Peart. Matt Peart is the starter. He needs to earn it, and he's got a good competition there with Nate Solder, a veteran who's played tackle in this league for over a decade. So it's going to be tough, to really decide. It's up to the Giants coaching staff, of course, but we'll see who exactly is the starter come week one. I'm still banking on Matt Peart, and I really want it to be him because he is more of a long-term answer, of course, than Nate Solder if he does pan out and become a good player. So really hoping that it's Matt Peart. But yeah, I'm in the same boat as you. I don't want to give any jobs out. I just want to be cautiously optimistic on Matt Peart, say maybe they're trying out some new things. Josh Uche is actually a really good player, pass rusher for the Patriots. He's who was beating Matt Peart today. Not actually even surprised to hear that. He was a guy that I really liked a lot coming out of Michigan. So, he's a player that might maybe just had one of those really good practice days. Who knows? And maybe Matt Peart was trying out something new in his technique. You got to keep in mind as well, last season, the Giants' offensive line was really bad because they all changed their technique. Mark Colombo changed the technique of every single player on the offensive line. So part of the problem is that happened with Matt Peart. Then he got hurt and barely even practiced with the new technique that De Guglielmo brought in, right? Because they tried to revert the technique back to what they were using in college. So then he got hurt. So now he's just really far behind, I think Matt Peart is. Plus, he's still probably not at 100% with that back injury. So I think maybe just some patience with Matt Peart as he continues to work back. I think this injury might still be holding him back. I don't know. I don't want to speculate too much about injuries, but still, it doesn't seem like a coincidence that the kid was playing really well when he was healthy. And then his technique changed, and then he gets hurt, and then he takes forever to come back. He does come back, and then he's struggling. You know what I'm saying? It seems like there is some sort of at least correlation, not necessarily causation, but definitely correlation between poor play and back injury. So I'm just going to keep being patient with Matt Peart. Hopefully we see him get in some good reps on Sunday. Hopefully he plays well, better than he did against the Jets, and we can feel a little more confident going into the regular season with him penciled in as the starter.
Absolutely. When you talk about those difference in technique and those pass blocking snaps or reps specifically, I guess Mark Colombo really used more of a vertical pass blocking or pass pro technique, which really puts guys on an island. That's why the Giants had so many issues last year because they were really expecting all of their offensive linemen to survive on an island with no help. Now you have Rob Sale, who's more of a slide-based technique, which is what Nick Gates said. You have more help. You have guys shifting over to really push guys away, which will allow the Giants to execute more rollouts to whatever side, probably to the right side, which is where Daniel Jones mostly thrives. And I think that will be a tremendous addition for the Giants and really help them execute on their offensive scheme. But, that's where the Giants really struggled. That's where they really had issues because when you're going 1v1, when you're expected to take on a specific blocker and you have no preseason, you have no real in-person training. Most of your guys have no experience with one another, let alone in the NFL. They're going to get overrun. They're going to get destroyed. You know what I mean? Like you're expecting to go 1v1 in vertical pass pro. You're just going to get beat, especially if they're running stunts, especially if they're sending multiple blitzers. They don't know where to go. They don't know who to pick up. And that's why the slide technique should be better. We should see actual progress, because last year it took until the second half of the year when the Giants fired Mark Colombo for us to see any progress on the offensive line. We should start seeing progress in the trenches by week 2, 3, 4. We should start to see, better games, better individual performances. Last year it just got worse and worse and worse, and that's what said to me we need to change. That's why Joe Judge was like, I mean, dude, you literally you're getting the time, you're getting the reps, you have the practice experience, but you're not getting better. So that's a coaching thing, right? Players should always be getting better and not getting worse, and that is always going to come down to coaching unless it's injury based. So that's why I think the Giants bring in Rob Sale. That first preseason game was an absolute shit show, for lack of a better term, an absolute shit show. The second game, though, looked a lot better. I don't know if you didn't watch it, we watched the whole thing, Anthony and I. I was posting videos throughout. The offensive line, in those depth pieces specifically, looked 100 times better. And we were like, it didn't even look like the same players. That's how much different it was. The first game, Kenny Wiggins was making cardinal sins, punching across his body. It was an absolute disaster. And then the second game, he fixed his technique. He looked a lot better. He wasn't a liability. And it was like, okay, the guys took a step forward. They developed. They actually got better against a better team. So that's really what stood out to me, and I thought that was a tremendous win for the Giants coaching staff there. And that's really where I wanna harp on the coaching staff taking steps forward and really showing that they're doing a good job. And the first live action of an NFL season is always going to be ugly. It's always going to be ugly. But the second one, that's where you want to see a little bit of improvement here, a little bit of improvement there, and the Giants saw that. So I was really excited to see that, especially guys on defense too. Rodarius Williams looked awesome in the second preseason game. He only gave up, I think, 2 catches for like 20 yards. In that first preseason game, he gave up 8 catches for 99 yards. So talk about a big difference. And he played 50% of those in the slot, and he had some reps at safety. So those are big storylines to follow, Anthony. But let's talk about Rodarius Williams before we wrap up here. When you're looking at him, do you want to see him getting the majority of those snaps with Adoree Jackson missing time right now, or would you rather see Julian Love kind of working on the boundary? Because I know actually Julian Love's getting a lot in the slot right now because Darnay Holmes has been struggling.
Problem is, Rodarius did limp off with an injury today, so I don't know the severity of it. I don't know if it was just cramps, whatever, but you hope that doesn't linger around. I hope that he does play on Sunday, and I think that he will because it didn't sound like it was anything serious. Probably was cramps. It was like 95 degrees out today in New England, so
It
makes
was after a
sense.
long drive too.
Right,
35
yeah.
play drive apparently.
35 plays. What the hell?
It might have been an exaggeration, but they were saying it was a crazy long drive for Mac Jones, and Rodarius Williams was on the field for like the entire time.
My
So
goodness.
he probably had cramps in his calf or something. It happens. He'll
Yeah,
be fine.
wow. Yeah, hopefully. Yeah, I do think he'll be fine. I hope so. But yeah, I want to see him play more on the outside, hopefully, just because I think that's where we need a little more depth. At least, once Aaron Robinson comes back, I think our depth on the nickel cornerback position is pretty good. Rodarius can contribute there. Julian Love can contribute there. Darnay Holmes does play there pretty much full time. Aaron Robinson is expected to play there mostly full time, or at least for the majority of the time. So yeah, I think that we've got some pretty good depth at inside corner. I want to see a little bit more depth at outside corner because, correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't Josh Jackson the guy we just traded for? Isn't he injured right now? I think that he's dealing with an injury. So I
Yeah,
don't
the
even think
first
that he,
practice he got injured.
yeah, yeah, I don't even think that he's contributing to the outside depth, So I would like to see Rodarius continue to play outside, hopefully contribute as decent depth there, and have the versatility to go inside. And that's what you really need to see from those back end of the roster guys. They need to be able to contribute in multiple positions. That's the same thing with Trent Harris as well. He was an edge rusher playing primarily on the edge. Last preseason game, they had him play a little inside linebacker. Make sure that you can do more than one thing. You got to do a bunch of different things in this league if you want to make it on the back end of the roster. So that's definitely what I'm keeping an eye on with Rodarius. Just can he play multiple spots, and how well does he play each spot that he plays? But yeah, that's pretty much the summary on Rodarius. But I do also want to mention, Saquon Barkley did return to action today. What are you thinking, Alex? Do you think he's playing the majority of snaps on Sunday versus the Denver Broncos next weekend? Like, I honestly, I think that he's going to play a good portion of week 1. He looks pretty healthy right now. He's participating in 11 on 11 drills. I think there's a good chance that he sees the majority of the rushes against the Broncos.
Against the Broncos, I think he'll get 40%. I don't know about majority, but I think he'll get 40% of the touches, which is still pretty good because I think they like to get in those, even Corey Clement as a receiving back, Devontae Booker. That doesn't really offer much as a receiver. But I think 40% is a pretty good number. Maybe they'll try and get him in for a couple plays on Sunday. Highly doubt it. They try to get him in for the last preseason game. I think they'll really just be ramping him up during practice. And then week one, maybe they'll get him in 25 to 40%. I don't think they're going to really inject him as a full-time back. And then they'll use the Xavier McKinney model and just go up and up and up and up as the season progresses the first couple of weeks. But I do want to talk about one last thing before we sign off here. Ryan Santoso, the contract, or rather the player, was traded to the Carolina Panthers. The Giants received a 7th-round conditional pick in exchange, meaning that if he makes the roster, I'm not exactly sure the terms here, they were disclosed, but a conditional pick really just means something has to happen.
2 games. He has to be on the roster for 2 games.
Okay, so he has to play. He has to be in the roster for 2 games for the Giants to get the 7th-round pick. And don't discount a 7th-round pick. We've seen what they can get out of a 7th-round pick. Tay Crowder, potential starter this year. Carter Coughlin, he's looking like an animal. These are guys that are 7th-round picks. You never know what you're going to find in those back end of the round. So, especially maybe if you want to trade up, that's some extra value you didn't have before. Santoso was going to get cut anyway, my friends. But that's pretty much wraps up this episode. Hope you enjoyed Fireside Giants. As always, giving you guys all the information you could possibly ever need and ask for. We got you guys covered every day until this preseason game coming up on Sunday. We'll do a live stream before the game, get you guys all that good information and take some questions and really talk to you guys about anything you want to talk about. That's what we're here for, to provide content for you guys, the best fans on the planet Earth. And make sure to subscribe below on Apple, Spotify, and YouTube as always. And we'll catch you guys on the next New York Giants video.